All right, so we're going to segue in from this whole thing with, Candy and how she operates with her people. And what we're saying is that you can't, sometimes, somebody just has to be your friend. They can't be your employee. You have to kind of keep those separation between church and state, because somebody may be great, but doesn't mean that they're skilled to do what you need them to do. And we were saying that, Candy, I think, is like, she wants to be cool. She wants to bring her camp, people she's been cool with from back in the day. But you can't be all things to all people. No. And this was really an interesting thought, because I just read this article, and I don't remember what magazine it was, but Chris Rock just was
asked. The article.
The article was great. If you can find, what I'll do is probably post the link in the comments so you can read it yourself. And he's talking about, he was being interviewed, and he was asked about a whole bunch of different topics. Most of it had to do with race, and I think it started with the whole Ferguson situation. But he spoke specifically about Barack Obama, and where they asked him, like, where do they think he went wrong? Where do they think Barack went wrong? And he had I tell you, Chris Rock, for a comedian, he's so on point.
Insightful.
He's so insightful. That's the perfect word. He comes up with these nuggets, and like, he says it kind of like a joke sometimes, so maybe you don't take it seriously, but really he's on point. And what he said was, two major things is that Barack never should have cleaned up Bush's mess. He should have just let the fucking wheels fall off. Because if you let the wheels fall off, then again, that is only going to be associated with Bush. Like, look, this is what he did. Now I'm going to try to, I'm going to start some new shit, but I can't mess with this mess that he created.
And he made the analogy as in a sports team, which is, he said a lot of the new owners come in and they do exactly that.
You clean
fall by the wayside.
Yeah, you clean up shop.
New management, new whatever.
You get new people in. You don't even try. And I'm not going to try to fix your problems. I'm just going to bring in some new shit. And it's acceptable in sports, but for some reason with the country. And I think that speaks to Barack's personality. And you know me, I love Barack. Like, he's almost flawless in my mind. However, I do agree where he went wrong. His biggest mistake was trying to be all things to all people. Yes. And it's kind of like we were saying about Candy. You cannot, and like Bush, as much as I'm not a Bush fan, he spoke to his audience. Yeah. And he didn't give a fuck what anybody else thought about him. He's like, I'm going to speak to, and I'm going to keep the interest of the people who voted me in office 100%.
That's who I'm in office for, and I'm going to do everything for them.
Fuck everybody else. Yes. And that's why he got reelected, and that's why, even though he was arguably one of the worst presidents we ever had, he still did not have the poor approval ratings that Barack Obama has. Because in my opinion, Barack, I think part of it is the weight of being the first black president, feels too eager to please and to try to toe the line and to bring the sides together and to make everybody happy. But you have to realize this is a very polarized society that we live in, and no matter what you do, certain people are never going to have a meeting of the minds because they're just not built that way. So you have to speak to your audience, and you have to, in that sense, fuck everybody else. And he didn't do that. And that's the criticism he has even from liberals. Even Bill Maher, Cornel West, a lot of people who look at Barack and say, I voted for him, think he's a great guy, but where he falls short is that he's too nice.
Yeah.
That's basically what it comes down to.
Yeah, you can't care about what people think.
Yeah, you're not being realistic about this world we're living in. Like, you have this optimistic, kumbaya, we can all get together, but that's not the world we live in. Mm-hmm. And you got to speak to your audience, and you have to do. That's why I like, the last thing he did with immigration. It's an executive order. Fuck everybody else. That was a ballsy move, and I appreciate that. But he should have done more of those.
Yeah.
Because
he's got about a year and a half or a year or so left. Hopefully, every time I hear someone say something candid like Chris Rock, and even when Bill Maher has his new rules, and he said some shit about and I feel like I always go, I hope this gets back to Obama, and I hope he kind of really listens to, those points, because I think they are being very truthful, and there's a way that he can just, like you said, you need to do what you need to do, and not worry about what people try to play both sides of it, because you're never going to please everybody.
You'd never, and they don't try to please us in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and I like the fact that when the interviewer asked him about sort of his daughters and a new age of racism, and he said that the fact that what did he say, something about we celebrate a black man being qualified for president.
Yes.
He said there's been hundreds of years that black men
have been qualified
for president. It's not a black progress; it's white progress.
Yes,
it's white people getting on board and
yes.
saying, "Oh, okay, yeah, I think we have enough of these people. Let's appoint one of them."
Yes.
You know what I mean? But they've been around, and he said the same thing about being black and intelligent and being, well spoken or whatever it is. Those things have been around for years. It's just white people or other race acknowledging that, okay, yeah, there's not only this one cosmic of black people that's out there. There are other out there that are qualified for this or do speak well or do whatever it is. It's not supposed to be a celebration.
Yeah.
It's been done for years now.
It's like the analogy he gave with Tina Turner and Ike Turner, which was great. Where he's like, you see Ike and Tina sitting and having breakfast together, and, Ike is not beating her anymore. That's not Tina's progress. That's Ike's progress, because Ike decided to stop whooping her ass.
Yeah.
She didn't do nothing. He decided to stop whipping her ass. So it's not like, look at how great they are. Look how fucking great Ike is. Just like, look at how white people finally acknowledge that there is a black person who can be, the leader of the free world.
Yeah.
But then that's also, it's also kind of take it with a grain of salt, because they think it, but they don't really think it, because look at the way they're treating him.
Right. And it's like he's saying he hopes that America produces more nice white people. And it's what it really is. It's just about people coming around to the idea of actually seeing people for who they are and not just only, for the stereotypes that are, there are truths to it, obviously. But also there are things that's outside of that.
Yeah.
So, the article was really, really good.
Article was amazing. Like, he's so... And he even said that his daughters are encountering the nicest white people that have ever lived in America.
Yeah. And he's always asking them questions as to anything happened today. Mm-hmm. Like, he's always on alert. Like, he's always asking... He said he's always asking questions like, anything happened today?
Yeah.
What's going on? And they're looking at him like he's crazy. Like, nah, we good. So, it's just an interesting...
Yeah, these kids today have no concept. Like those who have been, like those kids who are Barack's been in office 6 years, who are maybe 10 years and younger, who don't know anything other than a black president or don't know that this is an anomaly. They have no idea. And like you said, the white people that they encounter are pretty damn friendly. Yeah. And especially in the Northeast. I know in the South it can be a little different, but, racism is so much more... what's the word? It's like he said, white people... I don't know if it was Chris Rock or if I was reading something else, but he was saying that white bigots they're only bigots when black people come around. Like, they don't know... White people may not know that their neighbors are bigots, because if there's no black person in the vicinity, there's never a conversation about it. There's no reason for you to know until maybe one moves into your neighborhood. Then it comes up like, oh... Did you see those, whatever, down the block? But if everybody in your block is white and everybody in your kid's school is white and your whole world is followed by... Why would it ever come up? Yeah. They would never know.
It's the same thing like he said that he would like to do, if he were to do a commentary on Ferguson, he would only interview white people. Yeah. He said because that would be the most interesting. Yeah. He goes, you're going to get the stereotypical outrage of a black person. It's not going to be anything new. But if you get some white folks on TV and you ask them some shit... They might say some shit you be like, it may be an eye-opener in their view. Or they may try to be so politically correct that it might almost be painful to watch. Yeah. So then that in itself can be very funny or interesting to watch too. Someone that's trying to toe the line of what, this is a black guy talking to me right now. But he also said 9 times out of 10, you're going to get some white person that's not going to realize that that question is being asked in a way. Like they're going to be honest anyway without knowing that they're really being offensive.
Yeah, definitely.
That's the world they live in.
Exactly. And I think a lot of those folks are like in the South. Like they don't even know that they're racist because it's so commonplace. And everybody, in the exposure level too, is like everybody, if your whole world is full of one kind of people, you almost can't fault them because they just don't know. If you're not exposed, like if the only time you're exposed to black or Hispanics is on the media, what you're gonna hear is, this kid had a gun and this person robbed this person, and you're gonna hear these stories, or you're gonna see things like Love and Hip Hop, and you're gonna look at us and say, these niggas they got to get their shit together, they're whatever, you know what I'm saying? But if that's all your exposure, I almost can't be mad at you. No, the problem is the people who are exposed to both would still believe that the majority of black and Hispanic people are a certain way. That's where the ignorance comes in. And this is the problem I have with a lot of Republicans. And I mean, when I say Republicans, not the motherfuckers in the red states who vote Republican because they just think that that's the smart thing to do. I'm talking about the staunch Republicans who understand the issues, understand what's at stake, and still vote in those interests. Those motherfuckers, they're the ones who concern me because they're educated and informed enough to know what they're doing and how ignorant it is to come to generalize, but they do it anyway.
But I think that's their way of, they really want their way, they want to live a certain type of lifestyle and comfortable lifestyle, and they really don't want that being messed with. So whatever it takes to make people feel afraid of anything different or new is what they're going to do. They're boldly saying, I want to continue being rich and living in this neighborhood or doing this. So whatever it takes to keep this status quo, I'm going to tell you that you want me to be in a well position to make laws and make sure.
Yeah, to take care of your interests because I know better than you.
Exactly. Because that's what it really is. But it's just to keep them in their comfortable nest. It's so funny because it's kind of to get more political too. There was a little excerpt. The media always starts to exaggerate stuff. It drew me in though when because they had Charles Barkley's comment. I don't know if you read
I saw a little bit of that. I was in the gym and I saw the little banner on CNN where he was talking about
Ferguson. Obviously, there was more to the story. It wasn't like he was like, because it read that he called the Ferguson protesters scumbags.
Yeah.
But when you read the article, he's calling the looters, the people that are clearly you and I was like, these niggas are going in and out of these convenience store taking shit, and you know, he called those scumbags. But he also said something that's very interesting, and again, which goes back to when we said that there was no objectivity in our culture. Is the same thing as he was being objective to say no one was in that courtroom when the evidence was being brought to their attention. So to say he shot an unarmed guy and his hand was in the air, when there are a lot of other documents that said his hand wasn't all the way up because obviously the cop said he didn't, and then there's autopsy and stuff like that saying that it was like half. They didn't know what he was doing. He was raising his hand, but to a point where the degree where he was raising it couldn't justify whether he was surrendering. But bigger than that, I feel like the fact that he reached into the car to have that altercation is what set that whole thing in motion. So unfortunately, people always say, oh yeah, he could have just chased after him, he didn't have to shoot him. But in a highly and volatile situation, you just got beat or you're in a fight with someone, you're not, just all factors you're not thinking. You're supposed to be trained. I know cops are supposed to be trained and everything like that. But I just feel like he also incited that whole rundown. Yeah. And I think no one's being objective enough to say, at what point do you not go into the cop car and actually fight with him just for him to tell you to get out the street? Yeah. Whether or not he's wrong for shooting you and killing you, but who are you? Who are you to be rolling up on a cop in his car? Yeah. You know what I mean? The evidence show he got punched. His blood, half of his blood or whatever, was inside the car. So there was some sort of scuffle. So you're fighting with this cop. Who does that? You know what I mean? Regardless if you thought that he didn't deserve to be shot because he was unarmed, because everybody keeps fixating on he was unarmed, but he was also aggressive. Yeah. So I don't understand why there's no, and then like you said, when someone like Charles Barkley, I think Pharrell Williams said that was very bullyish of him to kind of, in the convenience store, and also to the way he aggressively with the cop. They're just looking at it from a side of he also did some shit. Yeah. But no, everybody's up in arms because they even pointed out the shit that he did. Yeah. Because they're saying that's not the issue. He was shot and he was killed.
I think that black people tend to feel disloyal if they don't side with the masses when it comes to black versus white issues. Right. Even if they're not completely informed. And I'll be honest, I kind of stayed out of this whole Ferguson thing. Like, I'm not completely informed, and that's why I've reserved my judgment, because I did not invest in this story because I didn't want to.
Right.
I just didn't, it's sad. Maybe it's sad, and maybe I should have been more informed.
It wasn't just another shooting. You just didn't want to take part.
It was just too polarizing. It was too deep. It was just too much going on, and it's like it's sad, and I feel bad that this young man is dead. But yeah. I chose not to get involved. I kind of followed the Trayvon story, and certain things I don't even really want to think about because it's like. Mm-hmm. It's almost like it's a done deal. There are some issues in our society that are not going to change in my lifetime. And it's just certain things I just don't want to invest my thoughts in. And this was one of those situations. So I don't know the complete story. But from what I understood, I think both parties maybe exercise poor judgment. And and somebody who, knows police officers personally, I understand that they are just human. And that fear is not an emotion that's not felt by police officers. I mean, yeah, you have a gun and you have a power position, but you're still in fear for your life to a certain extent. And sometimes your decisions maybe not be the best decisions, but they're made out of fear. Mm-hmm. And I also think that people tend to incite certain, circumstances, through their actions, and it's just there's just too many factors.
There's so many variables.
Exactly. There's so many variables involved, and it's being that none of us were actually there to see it. Like I think it's just really hard to pass judgment so strongly. Like you can feel like, well, that doesn't sound right to me, but to be so vehement and to freaking march and all that stuff, I don't feel that strongly about something that I'm not that informed about. So. Right. I kind of just let that be what it is.
Point. That's where I stand on that side. Like I get what you're saying, and like you said, at the end of the day, none of us really know. Mm-hmm. But I feel like I followed it enough to know that it's just unfortunate that when you are objective about, let's take a step back here and let's examine. Like, there's a lot of things that didn't sound right about the cop situation, mm-hmm. and there's a lot of things that didn't sound right about the Brown situation in terms of on both ends. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Even his friend that talked about like what actually transpired was like, that sounds a little bit too clean on your part. I'm sure you guys are doing a little bit more than that. Yeah. And then on the other end of the cop interview, I'm like, you sound very like lawyered up, like rehearsed, and you know what I mean? You know the law enough to know that there's certain things that you have to just say on record and not waver.
The truth is somewhere in the middle, and we just don't know where.
But the fact that people are so on one end, like they just don't have any, they don't give any thought to Michael Brown being
anything less than a perfect young man who just happened to be,
and that too, because obviously he's not here to defend himself, so I get why people are going to not be so big, because like, okay, I'd be an asshole right now as I am, which I don't care, on this podcast saying I think he died the way he lived. So unfortunate enough, and it's probably an asshole thing because he's not here to defend himself, but I feel like his actions weren't as above board, and people are outraged as if it were. Yeah, and that's my problem with the system. So when people like Charles Barkley or Pharrell or anyone that has some sort of like neutral kind of, yes, I'm sad that this happened, he lost his life, because I just have to preface that. Yeah. But he did some, he wasn't innocent in, in the way he lived and the way he handled the situation. People are very upset, and they call, Charles Barkley Uncle Tom, and, he's a disgrace to the NBA. But it's like, why? Because it makes you think now that maybe these things that do happen to some black men are their own cause. Because, sometimes it is.
Well, just like that video that you sent me, Chris Rock did when he did the Chris Rock show several years ago, and it was done in jest and it was a joke, but there was a lot of truth in it, where he put together a little skit talking about how not to get fucked up by the police. Yeah. And pretty much it was like, don't break the law, I don't remember the others, was like, just don't do dumb shit.
Yeah, use your common sense.
Use common sense, shut the fuck up.
When someone tells you to stop. Don't, if they have to come get you, they bringing the whoop ass with them.
Yeah, like, it's just, to me, if you know that the cards are, the deck is stacked against you, like, it's fucked up. But nobody ever said life was fair. You know, we know this. Like, to me, it's like you have the knowledge. It's not like you landed on a planet and you don't know the rules and you don't know what's going on and you think everything is fair. We know how things are. We know that there's prejudice and there's racism and there's all this bias in this world. So if you know these things, don't do shit that's going to it's going to perpetuate those type of beliefs, you know. And yeah, it's fucked up that I was reading an article where it was a girl who was biracial. Her mother was black, her father was white, and he wrote a post about Ferguson, and he was basically saying that, you know, because, you know, people tend to take these things more seriously when a white person says it. Right. So as a white man, he was saying that, you know, he has some kind of special tint or something on his car, and he drives his car every day and nobody's ever stopped him. The times that his wife or his daughter drive the car, they get stopped. And he's like, you know, that's a clear sign that there's some racism involved. Perhaps it is. But, you know, the thing is, we know this. And if you are aware that these are the circumstances we're living in, don't do things that's going to make it worse for you. And then don't cry later about it's not fair. You know it's not fair. So are we behind enemy lines? Yeah. Just like Ice Cube said in High Learner, we're behind enemy lines in a lot of ways. So how about you just do what you got to do so that you can bring your ass home every night? Yeah. And when you can make a change that's going to matter by A, voting, B, you know, like becoming educated, things like that. You're making your voice known is not a matter of just standing on a block with a sign in your hand or your arms up in the air. Like, that's all cool, but that's not the shit that makes legislation change. That's not the shit that, you know, votes in people of color who understand the plight of the black man. Like, those are not the things that's going to matter. And people don't seem to do that. They feel like, oh, I'm going to, I don't know, boycott this. So I'm going to fucking stand on Union Square and blah, blah, blah. But what about on poll day? How come you don't show up? You know, how come you aren't showing up at fucking, you know, and voting for small, like, you know, people tend to show up for the presidential election. But this election we just had where we were voting for the governor and Congress, nobody showed up. And on a smaller scale, how about for council people or the president of your PTA or just shit like that? People think it doesn't matter. They don't show their ass. And then they get mad when there's no representation in whichever venue they live in. You can't have it both ways. You can't not voice your opinion when you have the opportunity, then be mad because nobody looks like you or hears what you have to say. And that's my anger with people, with minorities. You know, you show up for Black Friday, you motherfuckers are lined up outside of Best Buy and Kohl's and shit. You know, like, and the new Jordans come out and the PlayStation 4, you know, you all in then. You don't mind camping out, but you don't take 15 minutes out your time to stop at the local playground or the local elementary school and cast your vote before you go to work.
Yeah.
Come on, son.
And
you know,
like we said before, if there's some complaints, because obviously this is not the first time the cops have profiled these black men in Ferguson. Mm-hmm. So if you had enough of that, you go down to the fucking police, whatever, branch or wherever it is, and you demand some sort of, you know, recourse from the commissioner, or you get him out the next time. Yeah. This time to fucking vote. See, don't complain now that somebody shot. Oh, it's 10-1, you know, black, you know, cops to whatever, you know, I mean, white cops to someone black. You have one black cop and a Spanish cop, and now you're upset about that. Yeah, but you know what? You saw them before. You saw them. You don't act like all of a sudden now it's been a problem. Now it's a problem when somebody gets shot and somebody gets dead. Yeah. It's ridiculous. When you have an opportunity to have a voice, you choose not to have a voice. We're going to stop here and pick up in 2 seconds.